The bell above the door chimed softly. Jackson, a 45-year-old man, stepped inside the flagship Aroma Brews coffee shop. His clothes were simple. His face was a mask of nervous humility. He was here for his first day as a trainee. The store manager, Marcus, saw him instantly. His eyes scanned Jackson with open disdain. "You're the new guy? A bit old to be starting out, don't you think?" Before Jackson could answer, Marcus, accidentally, knocked a full latte off the counter. The milky coffee splashed across the clean, white floor. A wave of silence fell over the cafe. Marcus threw a dirty rag at Jackson's feet. His voice was cold and loud enough for everyone to hear. "Trainee, clean it up, now." Jackson felt the sting of public humiliation. He knelt down, the image of a defeated middle-aged man on his hands and knees. This was only the beginning. His knuckles turned white, gripping the damp rag. A hot, quiet rage burned in his chest. One phone call, that was all it would take. One call, and Marcus would be gone before this floor was even dry. The power to end this was a single thought away. It was so tempting. But then he slowly looked up from the floor. His eyes met those of the other employees. He saw Sarah, a young barista, staring blankly at her workstation, her shoulders slumped in defeat. He saw Linda, the older woman, quickly look away, pretending to be busy. He saw no anger in their faces, only a familiar, soul-crushing exhaustion. In that instant, he understood. Firing Marcus was simple. It solved a symptom, not the disease. The real problem was the silent fear in their eyes. To fix his company, he couldn't just be the CEO. He had to be Jackson. He had to stay. Later, during his break, Jackson sat in the small, windowless back room. The air was thick with the smell of old coffee grounds. He was quietly eating the sandwich when the door creaked open. It was Linda, the older barista. She glanced over her shoulder down the empty hallway before stepping inside, closing the door softly behind her. She held a steaming mug in her hands. Her voice was a low whisper. "What he did to you out there, that wasn't right." She placed the mug on the table in front of him, a simple offering of kindness. Jackson looked up, noticing the deep lines of worry etched around her eyes. "Listen to me," she said, her voice barely audible. "It's not what it looks like here. This place has secrets." She paused, her eyes pleading. "Just be careful. Keep your head down, do your work, and don't ask questions. It's safer for you that way." Jackson looked from the warm mug to her worried face. His voice was low, matching hers. "Safer? What do you mean by that, Linda?" Linda let out a long, tired sigh. She leaned in closer, as if the walls themselves might be listening. "You're the fourth one, Jackson. The fourth trainee in just 2 months." Her words were heavy with history. The first was a young man, full of energy. Marcus made him reorganize the storeroom 3 times in one day, just because he could. The boy quit that night. The second, a young woman, was fired for answering a call from her child's school. He called it theft of company time. The third one, he simply walked out mid-shift and never came back. No one knows why. She looked at him, her expression a mixture of pity and warning. They all had a spark. They all tried to push back. And now they are all gone. Back on the main floor, Linda's warning echoed in Jackson's mind. He started to watch the others, truly seeing them for the first time. His attention landed on Sarah. Her movements behind the counter were efficient and graceful, a quiet professional at work. During a brief lull in customers, she took a moment for herself. She poured steamed milk into a cup of espresso, her wrist moving with expert control. On the surface of the foam, a delicate swan began to take form. A small, proud smile touched her lips. Suddenly, Marcus's sharp voice cut through the air. "Are you painting pictures or making coffee?" Sarah's hand flinched. The swan became a messy swirl. "We have orders to fill," Marcus snapped, not even looking at her creation. "Less art, more speed." Jackson watched the small smile disappear from her face. He saw the light in her eyes dim, replaced by that same look of resignation. Another spark, crushed. An hour later, the front bell chimed, announcing a new arrival. An elderly man with kind eyes and a cheerful smile entered. The atmosphere behind the counter seemed to change instantly. "Good morning, Sarah. Another beautiful day," he said, his voice a warm, familiar rumble. For the first time since the incident, Jackson saw a genuine smile light up Sarah's face. "Good morning, Mr. Hung. It's good to see you." The man didn't need a menu. He leaned comfortably against the counter as if visiting a friend's home. "You know me, Sarah. The usual, please." Jackson watched the friendly, easy exchange. He saw the way Linda also smiled in greeting. This man was clearly more than just a customer. He was a welcome part of their daily routine, a small beacon of warmth in the cold, tense environment. For a moment, the cafe felt like the community it was supposed to be. Sarah prepared his large black coffee and served it with a genuine smile. "Here you are, Mr. Hung. Enjoy." He took the cup, a familiar comfort in his hands. He brought it to his lips for the first sip, a ritual he enjoyed every morning. But as the coffee touched his tongue, his warm smile faltered. He paused, taking a second, slower sip to be sure. The smile vanished completely, replaced by a small, confused frown. Holding the cup, he walked back to the counter. He looked more apologetic than upset. "Sarah, my dear," he began softly, "I am so sorry to bother you. But is something different today? The coffee? It tastes quite bitter, almost burnt." The brief moment of peace shattered. A tense silence fell over the staff. Jackson saw the color drain from Sarah's face, her newfound smile replaced instantly by a look of quiet panic. The problem had arrived. Before Sarah could respond, Marcus swooped in from his small office. He had clearly been listening, waiting for an opportunity. He completely ignored Mr. Hung's gentle demeanor. His voice was loud, sharp, and aimed directly at Sarah for everyone to hear. "You again? Always so careless." He then gave Mr. Hung a fake, apologetic smile. "I am so sorry, sir. It seems some of my staff can't even handle a simple black coffee. Her mind is always elsewhere." Sarah flinched as if struck. Her face burned with a deep, silent shame. Mr. Hung looked shocked by the outburst. "Oh, that's really not necessary. I just—" "Make him another one," Marcus commanded, cutting the kind man off. He pointed at Sarah, his tone leaving no room for argument. "And do it right this time." Jackson's jaw tightened. This wasn't management. This was a public shaming. Marcus walked away, satisfied with his display of power. Sarah remained at the counter, a statue in the silence he left behind. She did not cry. She did not make a sound. She simply stared down at the stainless steel surface, her back straight and rigid. She was trying to hold on to her dignity, but Jackson saw the truth. He was close enough to see her hands tremble slightly as she reached for a new cup. He saw the corners of her eyes turn red, a battle against tears she was trying so desperately to win. He saw the tight clench of her jaw. She remade the coffee with robotic efficiency. The graceful artist from before was gone, replaced by a pair of hands just following an order. In her quiet, dignified suffering, Jackson felt the true weight of her pain. It was a silent scream for help. A short time later, while restocking cups, Linda moved quietly to Jackson's side. She nodded discreetly towards Sarah. "It's not random, you know. His cruelty towards her," she whispered, her voice tight with anger. Jackson remained silent, letting her continue. "Last month, our company held a creative drink contest. Sarah worked for weeks on a new recipe, a honey lavender latte. It was amazing. Everyone who tried it loved it. She was so excited, so hopeful." Linda's eyes hardened. She had to give the entry form to Marcus to submit. He smiled and promised he would take care of it. He never sent it. He let the deadline pass on purpose. When she asked, he just said he forgot and that her idea probably wasn't good enough to win anyway. Jackson looked over at Sarah, now understanding the true depth of her sadness. This wasn't just bullying. This was deliberate, calculated sabotage. With his suspicion now fully awake, Jackson started to notice a new, disturbing pattern. It was a pattern of deliberate waste. He watched as Marcus took a nearly full carton of milk from the fridge. He didn't use it. He simply poured the entire contents down the drain. A few hours later, Jackson saw him open a fresh bag of expensive, single-origin coffee beans. He scooped out a small amount, then tossed the rest of the full bag into the trash bin, declaring it stale. After each of these strange actions, Marcus would take out a small black notebook. He would carefully make a note under a section titled Spoilage. It made no sense. A manager's job was to reduce waste and control costs, but Marcus seemed determined to destroy perfectly good inventory. Jackson knew he was seeing another piece of the puzzle. It was a destructive, illogical act, and he didn't yet understand the reason why. He knew observation wasn't enough. He needed proof. The opportunity came late in the afternoon. Marcus stepped out to the alley to take a phone call, leaving the small black notebook on his desk. Jackson saw his chance. Pretending to wipe down a nearby table, he moved closer. His heart was pounding. He shielded his phone with his body, angling it down towards the open page. The shutter made no sound, but in the quiet cafe, it felt like a gunshot. He had a clear photo of the long list under the spoilage column. Later, while taking out the trash, he found the discarded bag of expensive coffee beans. It was still almost full. He took another photo. This was no longer just about feelings. This was about facts. Jackson looked at the images on his phone. He was no longer just a trainee. He was an investigator building a case, one piece of evidence at a time. The evidence on his phone felt like a heavy weight in Jackson's pocket. It made every new interaction he witnessed feel even darker. He watched a young student who worked part-time nervously approach Marcus. "Excuse me, Marcus," the student said, his voice quiet. "I have my final university exam next Tuesday afternoon. I just need to leave 2 hours early." Marcus looked up from his paperwork, annoyed. "Your exam is not my problem." He took out a pen and pulled the weekly schedule towards him. With a thick, angry line, he crossed out nearly all of the students' shifts for the following week. "You need time off? Fine, now you have plenty of free time." The young man's face went pale. "But I need those hours," he stammered. Marcus just shrugged, a cruel smirk on his face, and walked away. Jackson now understood. The problem wasn't just theft. It was the pleasure Marcus took in wielding power, in casually ruining someone's life for asking for a small kindness. While refilling napkins, Jackson overheard a quiet conversation between Linda and Sarah. Their voices were soft, filled with a deep, sad nostalgia. "I miss the old days," Linda said, her hands slowing as she wiped a table. "Before Marcus," Sarah replied, her voice just a whisper. "Yes," Linda agreed, a distant look in her eyes. "When the owner, Mr. David, used to stop by. He knew everyone's name. He'd ask about our families. The whole cafe felt alive. We were proud to be here." She sighed heavily. "I wonder what he would think if he saw this place now." Jackson stood perfectly still, hidden by a shelf. Each word struck him like a physical blow. They were talking about him. They were mourning a past he had built, a spirit he had unknowingly allowed to be broken. Suddenly, the mission was no longer just about fixing a problem. It was about reclaiming his own name. It was about restoring the soul of his company. The cafe was finally quiet. The last employee had gone home, leaving Jackson alone in the dim light of the back room. He sat at the small table, the long day replaying in his mind. He saw the splash of coffee on the floor. He heard Linda's hushed warning. He felt Sarah's silent humiliation. He remembered the student's pale, shocked face, and he heard the echo of his own name, Mr. David, spoken like a forgotten memory. He pulled out his phone and looked at the pictures he had taken, the wasted supplies, the faked spoilage log. The pieces clicked together, forming a single, disturbing image. This wasn't just random cruelty or poor management. It was all connected. It was a pattern. It was a system designed to make this store fail. A cold resolve hardened within him. He was done observing. Now, he needed to understand the reason for this deliberate sabotage. He had to find out why. To find the answers, he knew he had to take a risk. The following evening, as Marcus was getting ready to close the shop, Jackson approached him. He kept his voice and posture humble. "Marcus," he said, "If it's all right with you, I'd like to stay behind for an hour. I'm still slow on the espresso machine. I want to get some extra practice so I don't slow the team down." Marcus grunted, barely looking at him. He was more concerned with counting the day's cash. "Fine. Whatever. Just clean up after yourself and make sure you lock the front door securely when you're done." He grabbed his keys and left without another word. The heavy click of the lock echoed through the empty cafe. Jackson stood alone in the silence. He was no longer a trainee. He was an investigator, and he had just created his first opportunity. The real work was about to begin. He didn't touch the espresso machine. Instead, he turned off the main cafe lights, making it look like he had left. He hid in the deep shadows of the storeroom, leaving the door open just a crack. He had a feeling his wait would be worth it. An hour later, a key turned in the back alley lock. Marcus slipped back inside. Under the dim security lights, Marcus moved with a practiced speed. He didn't hesitate. He went directly to the shelves holding the most expensive inventory. He grabbed 2 large sealed boxes of premium coffee beans, then a full case of organic milk. From the darkness, Jackson held his breath. He silently raised his phone. The camera lens focused through the gap in the door. He hit record. He captured it all. Marcus's face, the stolen goods, and the license plate of his car as he loaded the boxes. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was hard evidence. The video was proof of the theft. But it didn't explain the sabotage. It didn't explain the why. Jackson knew the answers he was looking for were in one place: Marcus's small, private office. The door was always kept locked. He stood before it in the quiet darkness. He reached into his wallet, into a hidden fold he hadn't touched in years. He pulled out a plain, white plastic card. It had no markings. It was his master key, a key he created when he first founded the company. His hand was steady as he held it to the electronic lock. A single, quiet beep pierced the silence. It was followed by the loud, heavy clunk of the mechanism releasing. He pushed the door open and slipped inside, closing it softly behind him. He was now inside the enemy's fortress. The search for the real truth was about to begin. The only light in the small office came from the computer monitor as it blinked to life. Jackson bypassed the simple password with ease. He ignored the sales reports and inventory sheets. He went straight for the email client. His eyes scanned the inbox. He saw dozens of normal, boring messages. And then he saw it. A chain of emails with a name he knew all too well, the district manager for the Daily Bean, their fiercest competitor. His heart pounded as he clicked it open. The words on the screen glowed in the darkness. He read about the store's sinking performance. He read about a prime location soon being available. He read about a large cash bonus for Marcus upon a successful transfer of property. Suddenly, all the pieces connected. The cruelty, the wasted supplies, the theft. It was all a single calculated plan to make his own store fail, to sell it to a rival from the inside. He was still staring at the screen, the scope of the betrayal settling in, when a new sound cut through the silence. It was the jingle of keys right outside the back alley door. A surge of adrenaline hit him. Marcus was coming back. His hands moved in a blur across the desk. Click. The email window vanished. Click. The computer logged out. The monitor went black just as he heard the lock on the office door begin to turn. There was no time to run, no time to think. He slid from the chair and squeezed himself into the dark, cramped space beneath the desk. The door swung open. Jackson held his breath, completely still. He could see Marcus's shoes just inches from his face. "Forgot my wallet," Marcus grumbled to himself. He snatched it from the desktop and left, locking the door behind him. Jackson didn't move, his heart hammering against his ribs. That was too close. Once he was clear of the cafe, his heart finally slowing, Jackson made the call. It was late, long after midnight, but he knew this couldn't wait. The phone was answered on the second ring. "Alex!" The voice on the other end was sharp and professional. It was his most trusted head of operations. "Alex, it's David," Jackson said, his voice low and serious. The hesitant trainee persona was gone, replaced by the firm authority of a CEO. Listen to me carefully. We have a major issue at the flagship store." He quickly summarized his findings: the theft, the faked waste reports, and the damning emails. "I'm sending you the evidence now," he commanded. "I need you to start a discreet digital investigation. I want server logs, financial records, everything you can find on Marcus Holloway. And Alex, absolute secrecy. No one else knows." There was a brief pause, then a steady, loyal voice replied, "Understood, David. I'm on it now." An hour before sunrise, Jackson's phone vibrated. A text message from Alex appeared on the screen, followed by a call. "David, I'm in the system." Alex's voice was tense. "The financial records show exactly what you suspected. The spoilage numbers are impossibly high. It's clear fraud." "And the security footage from the back alley?" Jackson asked, a thread of hope in his voice. There was a short, sharp sigh on the other end of the line. "That's where we have a problem. I can see the server logs. The system was accessed after hours, just like you said." Alex paused. "But the video files from those specific time slots are gone, wiped completely clean. This wasn't a simple delete. Someone with technical skill scrubbed the evidence." Jackson felt a cold knot of frustration. Marcus was more careful than he looked. The easiest, most direct proof had just vanished. A cold frustration washed over Jackson, but it was quickly replaced by resolve. "The files are gone, but is the data gone forever?" he asked, his voice sharp and focused. "It's never truly gone," Alex replied, a new energy in his tone. "Not if you know how to look, but recovering it will be difficult. It will take time." "You don't have time," Jackson said, his command clear. "I need that video before I walk back into that cafe tomorrow. The entire plan hinges on it. Assemble your team, whatever it takes. Consider it done." Miles away, Alex sent a single, encrypted message to his two best digital forensics experts. The message contained only 3 words. Priority 1. Now. In 2 quiet homes across the sleeping city, screens lit up. Keyboards began to click. The race against the sunrise had officially begun. The first light of dawn was breaking. Jackson was preparing to face another day at the cafe, his mind racing. Just then, his phone rang. It was Alex. "Tell me you have good news," Jackson said, his voice tight with anticipation. "We have it," Alex confirmed, his own voice laced with a mixture of exhaustion and intensity. "My team worked all night. We restored the key video files from the server. It's fragmented, but it's clear. We have him on camera." A wave of immense relief washed over Jackson. He finally had the irrefutable proof he needed. "Excellent work, Alex. Send it to me now." "It's on its way," Alex said. His tone suddenly shifted, losing all its triumph. It became grim. "But, David, you need to see this for yourself." "See what?" Jackson asked. There was a heavy pause before Alex delivered the chilling words. "We recovered the video, and it's much worse than you think." "Worse how?" Jackson demanded, his voice a low, dangerous command. "Explain it to me, Alex." "The video shows more than just theft," Alex said, his words sharp and clear. "It shows Marcus meeting with someone in the back alley. The other man is the district manager for the Daily Bean." Jackson felt the floor drop out from under him. "They're swapping out our inventory, David. The video shows them unloading cheap, low-grade coffee beans and replacing our premium stock. They have been systematically poisoning the quality of your product for months." The puzzle was now complete. The burnt taste of Mr. Hung's coffee, the constant customer complaints, the deliberate cruelty to the staff to ensure poor service. It was all a single, coordinated plan to burn the store to the ground, to make it fail so a rival could take its place. A cold, absolute clarity filled Jackson's mind. He now saw the entire picture, and he knew exactly what came next. It was Saturday morning, the busiest time of the week. The cafe was buzzing with the loud chatter of customers and the hiss of the espresso machine. Marcus was barking orders at the staff, and Jackson was quietly wiping down tables, playing his role as the invisible trainee. Then the bell on the door chimed. 3 people entered. They were not here for coffee. They wore sharp, dark business suits, and their faces were serious and unsmiling. They moved with a purpose that cut through the cafe's chaotic energy. The man leading them was Alex. He walked directly to the counter, bypassing the long line. "Marcus Holloway?" Alex asked, his voice calm, but carrying an undeniable authority. Marcus was visibly startled. "Yes? Who are you?" "I'm Alex, from the corporate office," he stated clearly. "This is a surprise operational audit. The final act had just begun." A flicker of panic crossed Marcus's eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it came. He replaced it with a broad, confident smile, instantly shifting into performance mode. "An audit? Of course, welcome," he boomed, his voice suddenly full of false warmth. "We believe in full transparency here. I'm proud of the work we do." He gestured expansively at the bustling cafe. "As you can see, we run a very tight ship. I've personally implemented several new protocols to cut down on waste and increase profitability. My team is one of the most efficient in the city." From across the room, Jackson listened to the mountain of lies. He heard Marcus boast about cutting waste and thought of the full bags of coffee in the dumpster. He heard him praise his efficient team and remembered the fear in their eyes. The dramatic irony was so thick it was almost suffocating. He was watching a dead man trying to praise his own funeral. While Marcus was still smiling from his own speech, Jackson stepped forward. He was holding a cleaning cloth, the perfect image of a lowly, hesitant employee. "Excuse me, Manager Marcus?" he asked, his voice deliberately soft and nervous. "I'm sorry to interrupt. I just had a quick question about the logbooks you had me review." Marcus's smile tightened. "What is it, trainee?" "Well," Jackson said, looking at the floor as if embarrassed. "I was just confused by a number. The log says we reported 200 gallons of milk as spoiled last month, but I saw the delivery invoices, and we only received 150 gallons. He looked up, his face a mask of pure innocence. "How is it possible to spoil more milk than we ever had?" The simple, logical question hung in the air. Marcus's confident facade instantly shattered. His smile froze, and a look of pure, cold panic flashed in his eyes. For a long moment, Marcus was speechless. The color drained from his face. He looked from Jackson's innocent expression to Alex's cold, unblinking stare. He was trapped. Unable to find a logical answer, he resorted to pure aggression. His composure completely crumbled. He pointed a trembling finger directly at Jackson, his voice suddenly a loud, panicked snarl. "That's none of your business. Your job is to wipe tables, not to question my reports." He took a threatening step forward. "You are not paid to think. Now get back to work before I fire you on the spot." The outburst was a raw display of fear. He had lost control. Before the silence could settle, Alex spoke, his voice calm and sharp. "Actually, that's an excellent question for an audit. We'll need to see that logbook now, Marcus." As Marcus stood cornered, a strange thing happened. Jackson, the timid trainee, began to change. He slowly and deliberately untied the strings of his dirty work apron. He folded it once and placed it on the counter. A calm, quiet smile touched his lips. It was a smile of absolute control. He stepped forward, out from behind the counter and into the open space. He looked directly into Marcus's eyes, his voice no longer soft but clear and strong, cutting through the tension. "You said my job wasn't to question your records," he stated, his voice echoing in the suddenly silent cafe. "I think it is, Marcus." He let the statement hang in the air for a heart-stopping moment. "Because my name is not Jackson. My name is David Chin, and I own this entire company." A deathly silence filled the cafe. Marcus stared at David, his face a pale mask of horror. Without breaking eye contact, David gave a subtle nod to Alex. Alex pressed a button on a small remote. The large digital menu screen on the wall, usually showing pictures of pastries, flickered to life. It was now playing a grainy, dark video. Everyone recognized the back alley of the store. They all watched as the footage clearly showed Marcus, his face illuminated by a security light, loading sealed boxes of expensive coffee beans into the trunk of his car. A collective gasp went through the staff. "You asked about the impossible spoilage numbers," David said. his voice calm and cold as the damning video played for all to see. "Here's your answer. It was never about waste, Marcus. It was about theft. Your theft." Marcus was still staring at the video when David gave another subtle signal to Alex. The image on the TV screen changed again. The grainy video was replaced by crystal-clear screenshots of emails. Everyone could see the names: Marcus Holloway and a manager from the Daily Bean. Key phrases were circled in red: declining reputation, prime for takeover, and the final damning words, your generous finder's fee. The theft was simple greed, David said, his voice dangerously quiet. But this is treason. This is the real reason our sales have been falling, the reason our coffee tasted burnt, the reason our best customers were unhappy. He took a step closer to Marcus, his eyes blazing. You weren't just stealing from me. You were actively destroying my business from the inside, all for a paycheck from our competitor. Marcus stumbled back, his face ashen. He stared at his own words on the screen. There was nowhere left to hide. David looked at the defeated man, his face void of all emotion except a cold, final resolve. He did not raise his voice. He delivered the sentence like a judge. "Marcus Holloway," he began, his voice cutting through the silent cafe, "for theft, for sabotage, and for conspiracy against the company you were hired to protect, your employment is terminated, effective immediately." He then looked past Marcus to the two other men in suits who had entered with Alex. They were not auditors. They were corporate security. They stepped forward calmly, positioning themselves on either side of Marcus. "Wait, please, David," Marcus begged, his arrogance completely gone, replaced by a pathetic desperation. "Escort Mr. Holloway off the premises," David said, turning his back on him. The entire cafe watched in stunned silence as the man who had been their tyrant was quietly and efficiently led out the front door, his reign of terror over. The front door clicked shut, sealing the scene. And in its wake, a heavy, absolute silence descended upon the cafe. It was a quiet so deep it felt louder than all the shouting that had come before. The hiss of the espresso machine had stopped. The background music seemed to have faded away. Customers sat frozen at their tables, coffee cups paused in mid-air. Behind the counter, the staff just stared. Sarah's hand was pressed against her mouth in disbelief. Linda leaned against a counter, looking as if a physical weight had just been lifted from her shoulders. For a full minute, no one spoke. No one moved. They were all breathing in the new air of the cafe. It was air without fear. It was the first quiet, peaceful moment they had shared in months. Finally, David broke the silence. He turned his back to the front door and faced his staff. The hard, commanding presence of the CEO melted away, replaced by a look of deep, sincere regret. He bowed his head slightly, a simple gesture of humility that spoke volumes. "I am so sorry," he said. His voice was not loud, but it was clear, and it was meant for them alone. "I need to apologize to every one of you." He looked up, meeting their shocked eyes. "As the owner of this company, my most important job is to protect my team, and I failed. I was so busy in my office that I let a tyrant run this store. I let you suffer." "This was my fault," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "and I will fix it." His apology settled in the quiet room. David knew that words were only the first step. Action had to follow. He moved behind the counter and stood directly in front of Sarah. She watched him, her expression a mixture of shock and cautious hope. "Sarah," he said, his voice full of warmth and respect. "Through all of this, you never lost your passion. You showed creativity when you were punished for it. You showed dignity when you were humiliated. This store needs a leader, not just a manager." He smiled, a true, genuine smile. "It needs you. Effective immediately, I am promoting you to store manager. The position is yours." He looked at her with complete confidence. "Now, please, help me make this place shine again." Sarah stared at him, speechless. Tears welled up in her eyes, but this time they were tears of pure, overwhelming joy. With tears of joy still fresh in her eyes, Sarah took a deep, steadying breath. She was a manager now. She looked across the cafe and saw Mr. Hung, who had watched the entire event unfold. Filled with a new sense of purpose, she walked to his table. "Mr. Hung," she said, her voice confident and clear, "I am so sorry about that awful coffee earlier. Please allow me to make you something much better. On the house." She went back behind the counter, her movements once again full of grace and passion. She prepared her signature honey lavender latte, the same creation Marcus had dismissed. She served the beautiful cup to Mr. Hung. He took a sip. His eyes widened in surprise, then in pure delight. "Oh my goodness, Sarah," he beamed. "This is absolutely wonderful. Now this tastes like the aroma brews I love." As the warmth of that moment spread through the cafe, David looked at the long line of waiting customers. He saw his team, now energized and hopeful, but still busy. Without a word, he walked to the staff area. He took a clean, crisp apron from a hook. It was the same style as the dirty one he had been forced to wear, but this time he put it on by choice. He stepped behind the counter, now a part of the team. He looked at Sarah, the newly appointed manager, with a genuine, respectful smile. "All right, boss," he said, his voice light and sincere. "Where do you need me?" A bright, disbelieving laugh bubbled up from Sarah. The rest of the staff looked on in awe. The owner of their entire company was tying on an apron, ready to work alongside them. It was a gesture more powerful than any speech. As they worked together, a new, joyful rhythm filled the cafe. While handing a finished latte to Sarah, David spoke, his voice quiet and sincere, meant only for the team around him. "You know," he started, never stopping his work, "I almost just fired him from my office on the first day. A single phone call." He shook his head. "But that wouldn't have fixed anything. Being here, being Jackson, it taught me something I had forgotten in my comfortable office. True leadership isn't about giving orders. It's not about power or titles." He looked at each of his employees. "It's about service. It's about being here on the front lines and making sure you have everything you need to succeed. My job is to support you, not the other way around." The cafe was transformed. For the rest of the day, it was filled with a new kind of energy. Laughter was heard from behind the counter. Sarah led her new team with a confident and happy smile. Customers felt the change, the warmth that had been missing for so long. David, the owner of it all, worked the entire shift. He washed dishes, cleared tables, and served coffee, working happily alongside his people. He wasn't the boss. He was just part of the team. His journey proved a simple, powerful truth. True leadership is not about the power you hold over people. It is about how well you serve them. This leaves us all with a fundamental choice, in work and in life. Do you build your world with fear, or do you build it with respect? Let us know your choice in the comments below.